Hey guys, Artist Cam MTL. Now the other day I did a little video, top 10 tips, hacks, and advices for fireworks. July 4th was coming up, also Montreal International Fireworks Festival. Next 8 weeks or so, 7 weeks or so. Tons of fireworks coming up, so I thought I'd help everybody out. So to follow that up though, I figured what I'd do is, because taking pictures is only one part of the problem, right? The second part is developing them in Lightroom and or Photoshop. So that's what I've set forth here. I set up a little, I guess a mini, not so much a tutorial, but this is the way I do it. And again, to me, this is a great starting point. It'll give you an idea what kind of exposure you want for your image and what you can do with it afterwards. So without further ado, let's rock this tutorial. So you'll notice here, this is the original image here. Okay. So this is the original image. And let's take a look at it unfettered here. So this is the original image. You'll notice beyond the lights, because obviously I've exposed for the fireworks here, right? So beyond the fireworks, everything is pretty dark. Okay? But thanks to my Nikon D750, we're going to be able to bring all of that back in post. Okay? And let's give ourselves a little bit of room here to work. This is how I like to work when I'm working on my, make the image as big as possible. When I'm working on my basic corrections, you want the image as big as possible so you can see it properly. Fairly simple concept. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to go shadows and highlights, okay? And I almost always, and you'll notice that I've exposed properly for the light here, but I almost always bring the highlights way down, and the reason for that is I usually play with the exposure as well. So shadows all the way up, okay? Highlights, oh, I would say probably around 50 or so, minus 50. Why? Because we're going to bring up the exposure until you see those little points of light. Okay? Now this is a good starting point. See, now my lights are exposed properly. I have a little bit of detail here. Okay? Highlights I might bring up now. Let's bring those up a bit. And the whites, definitely. I don't mind cutting off the whites a little bit in this case. It will definitely add to, and the blacks, well, this is pretty simple. As soon as I get a little bit of detail there we go. So the rest, we're going to play with contrast. You'll notice, as soon as we lift the contrast a little bit, you're going to lose a lot of detail here, right? And where do we get the detail back? Exposure. So let's move that up until we got a nice burst. There we go. See, I got a nice burst right in the middle. Now, I might even bring that down just a little bit. About 2, that's good. That's much better. Now, highlights, again, we're looking always here. This is where we exposed for. So we can bring our highlights back down. And there we go. See, we're cutting off still just a little bit here, but that's okay. If you're cutting off only one very small part and it's fireworks, you're basically blowing away that one small part of the image, but that adds to the contrast, okay? Because don't forget, it's nighttime. Alright, good stuff. Now, I typically like to crop 4x5 for my Instagram. So the first thing I do is I come to, so the next thing I do is we just play with the tone curve. I go into the automatic settings and I go from linear to medium to strong, and it gives me strong is just way too strong on most occasions. The medium might give you a bit of a better idea here, but you notice we're losing a bit of detail here. Now, I like what I've done with it through the whites and blacks. A lot of times the whites, the blacks, and the contrast will actually take care of most of the contrast level. You may not have to touch your tone curve. Okay, so next would be clarity. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we just put up a little bit. We can put it up to about 20 is where I usually put it. And you'll notice it gives us a little bit more clarity here in the reflection. A little bit more clarity here. And of course, within this, you'll notice a little bit of a difference. I don't mind that at all. We added the clarity. Now we're going to add just a touch of dehaze. And I'll show you why. So if you put it up here, let's take a good look at it. Look at the before and pay attention to this if you can see it properly. Okay, and we're going to add a very small amount of dehaze. 10. Now look at it. Okay, so that's with the dehaze, without the dehaze. You've gotten a little more contrast and a little bit more vibrance. At the same time, getting 10. There we go. At the same time, the sky in the background, you notice there's some clouds that we can still see. We want that to be seen. It adds contrast to the clouds in the back. All right, good. So I don't usually touch the vibrance or the saturation. I do it all within the HSL and color by color, okay? Because you'll notice here, look, I have some purples. Definitely have some red, magenta, some oranges, right? So this is simple. When you get to the HSL panel, just play with it. Play with it. Look how, okay, if I up this, yeah, I usually start around, what is it, 30, 40, approximately 30 to 40, just to give myself an idea, what am I changing? And you can play with it yourself. It's obviously personal preference, but I like, yeah, I'm gonna put that down a little bit more. Okay, yellows, let's see. Now yellows, this might affect, in this particular image, it might affect the lights over here and how bright they are and how saturated they are, pardon me. Greens, does nothing greens. Matter of fact, green, I can see there's green here. I don't really like that effect all that much. I don't really like what it's giving me. I'm gonna try and put it down, see what it gives me. Not a huge difference, but we'll leave it down. Let's see what the aqua does. Ooh, the aqua's nice. See what it does to the. There we go. So you see what it does here. Yeah, and I put that up a lot. It's a very small part of the image, so you can afford to put the saturation up. Bring attention to that as well. And of course, let's see, we have blue. Not so much. But purple, we definitely want to, look at that. We definitely want to bring that up to about 50 or so. And we get this purple right here, very punchy. That's what we want. All right, let's see what the magenta does to the water. Oh, and the sky, but a little bit too much on the sky. We end up getting purple clouds here. Yeah, not so much. All right. Taking care of most of the saturation. You want to dive into the luminance if you need to change. Say if you want to make that red darker, look at that. If you're looking at the, you see I'm exaggerating here, but look how dark you can make it, right? Or if you need to make it brighter, I don't like it brighter to be honest with you. I'm going to bring the luminance down only by a small amount, about a 10 or 11 or so. I don't mind the oranges and yellows. Here's that effect if you want a little bit more detail in this, and it makes a nice star effect. I don't particularly like to go that far. Reason being, look at right around the light, suddenly you get these artifact. But if you go close enough, As soon as you start seeing that little artifact on the top, stop right there. Okay, greens again. So you make them brighter, they actually get a little bit, so I'm going to leave it there. Aquas, no, I don't mind a little darker as a matter of fact. Alright, there you go. Again, bringing attention, separating the colors of the fireworks. Okay, purple, a little darker or lighter. I'm not too dark here. To be honest with you, I'm going to leave it around 9 or so. Just darkening it a little bit more contrast. Not touching the magenta at all. Okay, so now we're done with the illuminance and saturation. Yeah, so next is the detail panel. Now you want to go in, add a little sharpness, play with the mask a little bit because you don't want to sharpen everything, you only want to sharpen certain things, and then add some luminance. Now that luminance will soften up some of the softer parts, and with the masking and the sharpening you've done will not affect the sharper parts of the image, or rather the sharper edges of the image. I'll show you. So let's take the sharpening first and foremost. We're going to take that up to about somewhere between 60 and 70. It's 50 ISO, so I'm going to leave it at about 60. That's fine. I'm going to put my mask, right? The masking. Now this is the important part. You don't want everything sharpened. You just don't. You don't want to take a blurry part of the image and sharpen it. Or rather sharpen the pixels. So use your mask. I typically put it somewhere between 60 all the way up to 90 depending on the type of photography. 90, this is like night photography, high ISO. This is 50, so I can put it somewhere around 50 to 60 even. We're good. Now in the luminance, the noise reduction, if you will, there's not a lot to do. It's 50 ISO, there's no noise. But I like to put it up somewhere around 20. I found when I come in close 1:1 with these settings, even at a very low ISO 50, I seem to get, I like the pixels. I don't know what to tell you. When I go 1:1, I like the way the pixels have been sharpened. I like the way the blurry parts stay blurry and are even a little more blurry with the luminance. Okay, so next panel, lens correction. Now this is, I tell everybody, there's two boxes you can click on. One is remove chromatic aberration. I always click it. If there's none, it won't remove any. And I've never really seen any negative effects if there's none by clicking it. So I always click it. Second is enable profile. Now, do you want the lens profile, yes or no? This is a personal choice. I always do this after the fact because I want to see what the change is. Do I like the change? Do I dislike the change? If I like it, great, I'll keep it. If I dislike it, get rid of it. I don't need it. It's not an absolute. Okay, so let's take a look. So I click it on, off, on. Yeah, I get a little bit more blue in the sky up here. It actually brightens, a little bit less vignetting. Yeah, but I'm gonna crop and then add some vignette afterwards. So you know what? I'm gonna leave the correction in place. I like what it's done to the sky up here. We're gonna stick with it, okay? So before anything that I might want to do, like transform or correcting lines or anything like that, I am going to crop. Now, as I stated at the beginning, I typically crop 4x5 Instagram. Can I tell you? So let's take a look, see what we want to keep in and out. So let's cut this car off at the end here. Keep some of these lights over here. I don't mind that. And keep these lights here. So this is really extraneous to me. I don't need that. And I might just even cut it to here. Yeah, I like that. I got this bright part of the image down here I think is a little distracting, and this gives me lights, or reflections rather, from one end to the other. I like that as well. Okay, let's stick with that. I like it. Perfect. So, I've done that. Now, the question is, do I want to straighten the lines? Now, you're going to look at this. If you go the lines where the people are sitting, you'll notice that it's crooked. It's a little higher on the left side and lower on the right side. But you look at the bridge here, and it's higher on the right side and lower on the left side. So what do we do? You see this pole here? Now, I can try to straighten it and we can see what it looks like. Okay, so I'll just take my rotate here and we'll try to rotate until that's straight. Now, if you notice, as soon as I get that straight, this line is straight, the bridge is straight, and this, well, this I can fix in post in Photoshop, not a problem. And I think it's a much better image like this. So you know what, we're gonna keep it like that. Fantastic. So let's go to vignetting. Do I want vignetting, yes or no? I want a little bit. I typically go to about 15, and you'll notice it darkens the edges nice. This I'll probably get rid of in Photoshop. This little light down here is a little distracting. I don't like that. So we're good to go. This is good. Let's go back up. Before we go anywhere, after I think I've done everything, I go back into my basics panel and I just do a little bit of playing just to see, is it good? Can I make it a little better? Excuse me. Just to see if it's good, can I make it a little better? You never know. Let's check it out. Okay, so highlights. Let's take a look. So you see these are highlights that are blown out, right? So what happens if I bring the highlights down? See, I'm losing the blue in the sky, so I don't quite like that so much. Maybe somewhere in between. I still keep a little bit of the blue in the sky. Okay. But I've lost here. That's no problem. A tenth of a bit of exposure. So these highlights have been brought down. I got my blue skies back by moving this exposure up. Yep, I think we're good to go, and I think the rest we're going to edit in Photoshop. So let's go for a mini break, and I'll be right back with Photoshop. See this first part here? I'm going to take care of this up here. Notice there's a, because of the rotate that we did, a little piece missing here. So, just going to take a quick look, see if we can't just make that a little bit of a blue sky. What do you think? And we got opacity up at 100%. There we go. Much better. Alright, just do a quick run over. Okay. We'll add some clouds here. The trick when you're using the clone tool is not to take it from the same place all the time. You don't want the exact same image being repeated over and over and over again. That way at least you end up like this. Hey, guess what that is? Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. I don't mind that at all. Okay, let's get it back here. So this as well, I want to get rid of this. Okay. So we could just take it from here. Now you notice there's a little bit more detail, so I try and get a little bit more here. Okay, make this as accurate as possible. Just take all the little lights away. We're good. Good to go. Even maybe here. We don't really need this stuff on the edge. it can be quite distracting, especially if it's down in the corner off nowhere. This I don't mind at all. This is good. Okay, we're good to go. It's not necessary. You can get away with just this image, but I want to do a little extra. So we're going to add a moon here. What do you say? Okay, we're going to open up this image. It shows, well, let's see if we can find it here. Oh, wrong drive. That's, yeah, wrong drive, definitely. Okay, it's within posted images. There we go, down near the bottom, I believe. There we go. Alright. Okay, that'll do. So, Control all, we copy it. I'm going to come over here, we're going to paste a new layer. Yes, want that there so you see it here, right? Okay, so first thing, let's make it in its place. And we do Control T. We're going to obviously not have it that big. That might work. It's actually up and over here, but I like it here better aesthetically, even though it's not exactly where it would be. Yeah, we'll play with the clouds afterwards. All right, good start. You see, now we have the size that we want, and what we want to do now is we're going to come over here and we're going to change this layer to lighten, and that's going to get rid of the black that's around. You notice it's still very visible. Now, we're not done here. Obviously, it just looks like something we slapped over it. And you'll notice it's a little bit blurry in the back. That's the first thing we're going to try to take care of. And you'll notice that now the clouds here are actually in back of the moon, which would never happen. Okay, so what we've got to do is manipulate the clouds to make sure it doesn't look like the clouds are going behind the moon. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here on the actual layer, the first thing we're going to do on the moon layer itself, we're going to do a little bit of a blur to, I'm going to go into blur, we're going to go into Gaussian blur, okay, and I got about 1 pixel here, and that's really all I want. You take a look at it, it's just really sharp. You take a look at that, just ever so slight blur, maybe even a little bit less, say a 0.8, 0.7. Let's see how that is. Okay, there you go. It just gives us a little blur. This is at 1:1, so when we back it off, it's still going to look very sharp in a 4:5 image, obviously. There you go. Still looks sharp. A little bit too bright, but again, we'll fix that. Not a problem. Alright, so the second thing we want to do is take care of these clouds. Again, we have these clouds that they just don't look real, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the blue and we're going to try to make a little area where there's no clouds and the moon can stand out, rather than trying to copy and paste clouds in front of it. Much easier to do this. Copy from here. Now remember, we're not affecting this top layer here, so we can just come from here and move it that way. Oops. And that way, that way, that way. A little bit more. Oops. Too much. Let's undo that. And okay. So that is a little bit better. Now on the top, complicated. Oh, we can still use from this area. That's good. Try to get rid of a lot of it here. Simplest reason is you don't want the cloud to come here and then up and around. It's going to look very, very fake. Already it'll look a little fake. So let's not overdo it, shall we? So there's looks like a bit more break in the clouds here, so it's going to look a little bit more realistic. Alright. Same thing over here. Oops, I did it again. Sorry, trying to do this a little quick, guys. Believe me, when you want to do it, take your time. Do a better job than I'm doing right now. I'm just doing this super quick here. Okay, so the cloud looks like it's going up a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look. See, it looks like it's going up and around. Well, technically, you could probably still do this area a bit. Again, this area. Whoops, I did it again. Okay. I'm Britney Spears, apparently. Okay, good. So that, yeah, so. Okay, so let's work on this brightness of the moon a bit. It's a little bit too bright. I'm literally just going to do brightness contrast here. I'm going to just dim it down just a little bit. Not much. You don't want to go too much, because if you dim it down too much and you're... see, now that is not bad. So again, that's what it was. Now it's a little bit less bright, but still looks good. Well, that's it. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. Throw them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to help. And, well, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.